Hello, welcome, and thank you for visiting the Open Leadership channel. My name is Michael Breeze, and this is the second video in the mini-series about leadership purpose. And in this one, I'm going to talk about the importance of connecting your team as part of your leadership purpose. Now, I hope you find this video useful. Do stay till the end of the video to see how you can get access to more free resources. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, it would really help me if you could. It makes it so much easier for me to carry on making free content if you subscribe. So hopefully you've already watched the first video in this mini-series about overall leadership purpose. If not, it's worth doing so first. To remind you, it ended with two key outputs. One was a concise statement for leadership purpose, which was, our purpose was to help our teams succeed whilst developing them as individuals and as teams. So the whole purpose of leadership, helping our teams succeed whilst developing them as individuals and teams. The second output from that video was the three elements of leadership purpose that will enable you to put that statement of leadership purpose into action. And these elements were: one, to connect your team to their situation; secondly, to engage your team in making things happen; and thirdly, grow your team's capability. Now in this video, we'll explore why the connect step is so vital and what the connections are that we need to focus on. One of the most common issues that I've witnessed in organisations is poor connection for people and teams. Connections that are essential to teams for them to be able to do their job to the best of their ability, but also to help people feel valued and included in the organisation. The five critical areas of connection to consider, I think, are: one, the big why, what I call the big why, which is the corporate strategy, the corporate intent, the corporate vision. Secondly, to their leader, the quality of their connection to their leader is critical. Thirdly, to the team as a whole, the people in it and its plans and intentions. Fourthly, strong connection to key stakeholders such as customers and suppliers. And fifth and last, the connection to those resources and collaborators that might help them do a great job. In other words, connecting them to their working environment, their situation, as well as their options for action. Starting with the big why, connection number one. A couple of years ago, I stood with the regional vice president of a major US retailer during a store visit. Now, the assistant store manager at that store was showing the regional vice president how she used a newly rolled out tablet device to access stock information and read messages from headquarters and other administrative tasks like that. Now, the RVP took some time to explain an original primary objective of the device, which was to address declining market share. They'd had a situation where online competitors, who can give customers access to a virtually infinite range of products, that they were taking away sales from this organisation. So the tablet was intended to allow access to a far greater range of products than could be stocked in store, and then it matched that in almost infinite range within store service differentiation, so that the customers could receive personal attention and get advice on the products, which would be much harder for an online competitor. Now, once he'd explained this, bang, it was like an explosion of ideas and ways of using the tablet flowed out of this assistant store manager. She thought and suggested she could train the sales assistants in its use. She could learn and then show the staff what range was now available and how to access it. She could advertise the greater range to customers with an in-store signage of some sort. She just went on pouring ideas out, whether they were all practical or not. Once she was connected to the big why, the purpose of this from a strategic and corporate point of view, she was away with ideas. This is a powerful lesson in the importance of connecting to the big why, to the strategy, to the corporate intent. Now, I see this sort of thing time and again. Initiatives and rollouts, new technology, new products that underperform or fail for lack of this sort of connection. Why wasn't that message about the tablet device clearly communicated to all of the stores in the first place? It was a very large investment intended to address a critical business issue. It was great work by the RVP connecting the assistant store manager to the strategic intent of the business with regard to this device. But why did it take a visit from an RVP to make this connection? In that particular business, the RVPs can't even get into all of their stores annually. It's far too big a group of stores that they've got. So this is an example of why a powerful connection from the top of the organisation chart to the bottom is absolutely key. How can people on the front line have any idea about the best way to handle any given situation, problem, opportunity, customer interaction, if they're not aware of where the organisation is trying to go, of its intent, of its strategy, of its vision for what great looks like? So, connect your people and yourself to the big why. As a new or experienced leader, if you're not fully aware of where your business is headed, of what that strategic imperatives are for it, and what they mean for your work area, your team and you, then find out. Never find yourself in a situation where you're delegating work, communicating new initiatives, or amended working processes, or anything like that if you cannot explain why. Because if you cannot explain why, you can't explain how your people might execute the work to best effect on the goals, the strategy, and the vision of your organization. And there's another enormous prize of doing this. You will create a more rewarding and happier workplace. You'll generate feelings, if you connect people to the big why, you'll generate feelings for your team of being valued and respected, of being part of something bigger than themselves, of being included in that big why conversation, being a recognized part of delivering the organization's plans and goals, rather than just being people who come to work for a wage. So that's the first connection, the big why. The second connection for your team is to you, the leader. Now this might seem obvious and even automatic connection to you, but the quality of this connection is absolutely critical and is frequently underinvested in. Now, people need to know who their leader is as a person, what they stand for, what they believe in, what they care about. This sort of intimacy, I suppose, creates great trust and openness in teams. It facilitates for open dialogue, which is essential, and equally important, upward challenge and upward information flow. And this connection, of course, is very two-way. The leader also needs to know to the same degree of knowledge and understanding of the people in their teams, knowing your people, what matters to them, why they're in the job, what's happening in their life. It's the other fundamental in building relationships of trust. It has to be two-way. Knowing your people well will allow you to delegate truly effectively. It'll facilitate good coaching conversations and robust feedback when it's needed, because you trust one another, because that intimacy, that knowledge of one another is there. Now, attending to this connection as a whole creates bonds that will withstand the setbacks and failures that teams come across in their lives, and allow the team to course correct and learn from their experiences without breaking the team or causing a crisis in its morale. So, in summary, connect to your team as their leader. The third critical connection, of course, for your team is to the team as a whole, to one another and to the team's situation. Now, dysfunctional teams are very dangerous. They can kill organizations. I've witnessed dysfunctional teams create terrible consequences. I've seen key people leave the organization because of the poor quality and the atmosphere and the culture in a team. I've seen terrible decisions. I've seen failure to make critical decisions. Awful consequences to business performance. Shocking. I mean, sometimes genuinely shocking reputational damage to an organization. I've seen dismissal. I've seen bullying. I've even in one case seen violence between two team members because the team hadn't sorted out the basics of connecting to one another and sorted out how they were working together. Teams need certain key things in place to understand and trust one another fully and to function, truly well. They need to know their shared goals and objectives as a team. They need to know what the plans are to achieve this. They need to know each other's roles and responsibilities within it. Who's doing which bit? Who's got what duties? They need to know the rules of how they'll work together and how to resolve conflict that comes up occasionally, and have those difficult conversations constructively. What are the rules? How do we do this as a team? And do we know each other well enough to be able to handle it well? And they need to know each other as people. Now, I will in later videos share critical tools and methods to address these things, but in the meantime, don't want to shortchange you guys and send you away with nothing to focus on. In the meantime, you could start by, firstly, establishing clarity with your team about its goals and mission. Make sure that everyone genuinely understands where you're trying to get to by when, and then, of course, make sure that they're clear about everyone's individual roles and responsibilities within that as far as you can. And then thirdly, find ways for your team to spend time to get together, getting to know each other. Maybe that's about social events. Maybe it's about specific agenda items in your next team meeting where you give time for sharing stuff about one another and talking to one another. Whatever, it's a critical area to get to know each other personally. So connection 3 is to each other, to the team as a whole, and to its task. The next connection is for your team to connect to the other key stakeholders in and around your organization. Now, in first order here is for your organization's customers, of course. How well do your people really know what their customers need or want from your organization, what their circumstances and situations are? Now, I've seen so many customer service functions where the frontline staff, they know the internal processes perfectly. They know the system. They know how to operate and deliver the prescribed service, but they don't have a real understanding of the customer, or they don't know how to listen and understand the customer's situation. It's a very common problem in customer service functions. So when things come up that are not prescribed by the system, by the method, by the standard operating process, then they have no idea how to react. They have very little choice in terms of how to react. They sort of have to choose to try and force the transaction into the prescribed system, the defined method of service, or simply give up and tell the customer that they can't help them. This happens a lot, and when this happens, your organization can appear unlistening, even uncaring about their customers. And for a loyal, long-term customer especially, but actually any customer, this might be enough to cause them to just take their business elsewhere. And of course, if your frontline staff aren't hearing or understanding, they can't listen because they have to operate the process and they haven't been taught how to actually listen and attend to customer needs, then how is your organization going to get to hear how it is failing the customer, or that the customer's needs are changing? Your customer-facing staff should be your eyes and ears, and not just the operators of your system. Now, I'll admit, achieving some of this might well be out of your control as a new or junior leader in your business. Often, of course, central training functions, mandated working processes, and systems need changing, and this will be out of your control. But you can spend time with your teams, thinking and learning about your customers. You might be able to get them to talk to, and more importantly, listen to customers more than the standard transaction requires, if that's possible. You can feed back up to senior management your observation and concerns about customer service and about flexibility or the ability to listen to customers. Now, all of this also applies to you and your team, even if you're not directly customer facing. IT teams, HR departments, internal engineering and technical functions, and many others all impact customer service in many ways, but are frequently totally unaware of their end customer as they go about their day-to-day work. Now, find ways of connecting your team to the end customer experience, and you will not only get happier customers, you'll also get a much more engaged and enthusiastic people in your teams. Now, this might be a little harder to do if you're not in a customer-facing area, but there are still steps that you can take to get there. And that really brings us to our next group of stakeholders, which is your internal customers. Connect to your internal customers as a first step towards the external customers. So if you're in IT, for example, do you know which system change requests are most impacting the users, i.e. your internal customer, impacting their productivity or their ability to give customer service? And are you prioritizing these enough? If you're in HR, are you fully aware of the skill gaps or resource challenges that are having the biggest impact on the areas you serve, your internal customers? Do you know the impact on the end customer of these problems, of these issues? If not, find better ways to connect. And the last group of stakeholders in this category I want to stress are your suppliers. Now, Suppliers and external contractors often have little or no political power or influence in your organisation, and consequently they're frequently an afterthought in your day-to-day work, in your people's day-to-day work. But a strong connection to suppliers can allow them to understand your business better and give them the ability to innovate and create better solutions and add value to you and your team. Great supplier connection is partly about teaching them to be better at customer focus, customer connection, showing them what you need or what you would benefit from. But it's also about listening to them and looking at how together you can work for solutions that will add value to both parties. So that was connection for other key stakeholders, obviously a fundamentally important group. Finally, the connection 5 is to the team's resources and collaborators. Once your team's been connected to the big why, to you, their leader, to one another and their task, and to their key stakeholders, they'll understand enough to know how to go about delivering great results and work together to achieve that. The final connection then is to the resources and support that is available to them, so they can leverage those to even better effect in those goals. Now, these might include colleagues in specialist support functions, systems and specific functionality features within systems that are often unknown, how to access or request training and development support, best practice working methods if your company stores those somewhere and you can access them, knowledge banks, libraries, whatever might be out there in terms of good information, knowledge and skills. Now I've lost count of how many times in many corporations I have heard teams report back or individuals report back on a failed initiative or an initiative that took forever to get there and cost a fortune and run over time, problems, only to have someone else in the audience listening to this report back say, hey, but we could have shown you how to solve that. We've done that before, or we have an app for that, or why didn't you ask us? So the depth and quality of connection to resources and collaborators can be massively improved productivity and efficiency, but also, of course, in those sort of situations that I've just described, it'll also reduce the frustration and failure that your staff will feel and experience when they didn't know they had a resource available to them that could have helped them solve the problem more effectively, more quickly. So we've covered the 5 key areas that make up that sort of wheel of connection. As a junior manager, of course, not all of these are fully in your control, of course. The important thing is to work out those that are and that you can get on and work on them and look for ways to impact or influence the others. Each is important, and if your team has the best possible connections to all of them, given your current situation, then they will be ready to create more value, overcome problems, please the customer, deliver results, and stand out in many respects. And of course, and perhaps just as importantly, enjoy their work more. So, in summary, connect your people to the big why, their leader, each other, their key stakeholders, and the resources and collaborators that are available to them, and they'll be ready to engage in action, value creation, and great service delivery, and the delivery of powerful results. So I hope this video was useful and interesting. Do watch the next one about engaging your people, because that's how you will then realize the best potential from that is created from creating great connections. The engaging is the next big step. Also, please remember to subscribe to this channel if you would. It would really help me, and do hit the reminder bell to receive notifications as new content drops in each week. As promised, to get access to more free resources, you can go to openleadershipbase.com. The link's in the video description if you can't understand what I'm saying. Now there you can also join the Open Leadership Base forum and get involved in conversations with me and other leaders. You can share experience, ask questions, as well as letting me know your thoughts about content on this channel and perhaps other things you'd like to see here. Another alternative, there's a link in the video description, and there's also a link at that website where you can go to Amazon and buy my book, Stepping Up: How to Be Great in Your First or Next Leadership Role. That's an option for you if you want to get a quick view of the whole of the open leadership approach. But I will be giving all the content away in these videos. But as I say, the book's available if that's your preferred option. Finally, do let me know your thoughts about this video by adding a comment below. Thanks for visiting, and hope to see you next time.